Blackmagic Design is one of my favorite companies. They make some of the coolest products, and not because I have some weird allegiance or they pay me as sponsored content. It's just because I genuinely like their products. I think they're really innovative. I think they offer a lot of cool things and with really cool features, and that's why I want to talk about them. Specifically, the Pocket Cinema camera and what it is currently, and then what I think it should become now that the Ursa Mini Pro 12K has been announced, and the Ursa Mini Pro is taking off in that direction of just crazy resolution and high frame rates and all the awesome stuff that comes with the Ursa Mini Pro. So I've shot with the original Ursa Mini 4.6K, the Ursa Mini Pro, which came after that had the built-in NDs and a few other additional features, and then the Ursa Mini Pro Gen 2 G2 that shoots 4K 120, and which all of these cameras are fantastic and great to use. I've also shot with the Pocket Cinema camera 4K. I haven't shot with the Pocket Cinema camera 6K, but they're very, very, very similar. The Pocket Cinema camera 4K is a micro four third mount, so micro four third sensor, which you use micro four third lenses for, and you can still use a speed booster on it if you want. So think of a Pocket Cinema camera 4K like a GH5. A Pocket Cinema camera 6K has an EF mount, so it's got more resolution doing 6K, but it's got the EF mount. So the deeper mount, flange distance of traditional mirror box style DSLR cameras, which is not as flexible, which is why I probably, even though it's a bigger sensor and you get more resolution, I probably would stay away from the Pocket Cinema camera 6K in today's day and age, just because the EF mount is kind of slowly going away as things go mirrorless. I think that's one of the downsides to Blackmagic when they create products. I think they look at them. I'm just reading into what I perceive. I don't actually know this for a fact, but I think they look at it and they go, what do people have a lot of? Oh, people have a lot of Canon EF lenses. Let's make a camera with an EF mount. Oh, people have a lot of LP E6 batteries. Let's make a video assist recorder that takes LP E6 batteries. And what ends up happening is both of these scenarios that I just described end up being less functional, even though they're very, very common. So the EF mount takes EF lenses, great, but it's not a mirrorless mount, so you can't adapt to it as much as you can with like micro four third. Micro four third, you can do speed boosters, you can adapt from Nikon or Canon or even like old vintage lenses. You can take like basically any lens that has ever existed and put on micro four third, and it'll work usually pretty fine. EF, because it's a deeper mount meant for a mirror box to be in the camera, even though there's not one in there, like there isn't a mirror in the Ursa Mini Pro or in the Pocket Cinema camera 6K, like there's no mirror in there, but it's still the mount that's meant to have a mirror in there. It just makes it less functional, less adaptable. Same thing with the video assist. When I used to use those before the Atomos, the video assist, which I can pull up here on the Blackmagic site, so if you don't know what I'm talking about, you can take a look. The video assist is like an external screen recorder setup, which, where is it on here? Video and audio monitoring. So there's a Smart View 4K, video assist, here we go. The video assist, so this external monitor display that also records, I don't know if it still takes LPE6 batteries. It looks like it maybe does. Maybe there's a version that takes the Sony batteries. But in any case, the point is the LPE6 batteries are meant for DSLR cameras. So they're like one size. There aren't bigger and smaller ones like there are for some of the Sony batteries that are meant for camcorders. So if you can imagine what I'm talking about, there's some batteries that are deeper and they give you bigger battery life, and other ones that are smaller that are cheaper but then shorter battery life. The LPE6 is like one size. There isn't like deeper LPE6s. So what ends up happening is that the video assist just like chews through these batteries like really, really fast. So again, like I think Blackmagic is taking that approach of like, well, people have a lot of these batteries, so let's make a recorder that takes them. And it's like, yeah, but those batteries don't actually last that long, and they're not as adaptable as something else like the Sony batteries that are for like the Sony camcorders and such, that you can get these big, deep batteries, or V-mount batteries or gold mount from Anton Bauer. So that's kind of the problem I see with Blackmagic. I think they look at the market as it currently exists, and they're doing less of like projecting forward of like what is the most useful mount? What is the most useful battery? What is the most useful? They're kind of looking like, well, what do people have? And I see that a lot too with the Pocket Cinema camera, because again, that takes the Canon LPE6 batteries, but it eats through them really, really fast. And you can get an external power adapter for the Pocket Cinema camera. But like, do you want to have external things? No, you want to be able to do everything right in the camera, bare minimum, and then add things to like really extend the battery life when you need something crazy like 8 hours or something like that in the field. So let's take a look. The Ursa Mini Pro, great camera. Now they have the 12K announced for $10,000. The G2 is still listed at $6,000. We're going to come down though. The micro cinema camera is interesting and kind of quirky and kind of cool, but we're going to talk about the Pocket Cinema camera and where this should go next, because it's due for an update eventually, sooner rather than later, I would say. This is a really cool camera that is basically like a smaller, tinier version of an Ursa Mini with a few quirks. The first and foremost being is that like this is kind of built like a DSLR or hybrid mirrorless camera meant to do photo and video, but this camera doesn't really do photo all that well. I would definitely not recommend it. It technically can take pictures. You can shoot that way with it, but it's really weird and awkward to do it. It's primarily a video camera. So why they went with the form factor, I don't mind it. I don't mind that it can be held that way. But if they're going to keep that kind of hybrid mentality, they really have to upgrade some of like the photo capabilities, or at least make it feel more like a proper photo camera and not so much like a video camera, because it definitely leans that direction. The first thing I would do when you refresh this thing, change the design a little bit, enough so that it's new, but change the name. The Pocket Cinema camera is one of the worst names. I absolutely despise it. And the fact that now it's the Pocket Cinema camera 4K and 6K and they have the different SKUs. What about this is pocketable? You can't fit that in your pocket. I don't know anyone's pockets that are big enough to fit a Pocket Cinema camera. So don't call it the Pocket Cinema camera. Call it like the hip cinema camera, because you can put it on your hip, or you can wear it on your neck if you're like got a lanyard type thing. No, change the name entirely. The Ursa and the Ursa Mini makes sense because there's the Ursa and then the smaller one, the Mini. Ursa is a cool name. It sounds like something. It sounds like, it's a bad example, but like a Ford Taurus or like a Chevy Camaro. It's a Camaro. It's a Corvette. It's a Mustang. Like, it has a name, an identity. That's one thing I love about Red and their cameras. It does get really confusing whether it's the Raven or the Weapon or the Gemini or Hydrogen or Komodo or like Epic and Monstro. Like, Red has gone a little bit overboard over the years with being really, really confusing. Blackmagic's at a great spot. They don't have that many cameras. They don't have that many SKUs. Make a cool name. Call it something interesting. Pocket Cinema camera is descriptive, but it's not accurate because you can't fit it in your pocket. And cinema camera. Most cameras are cinema cameras now. Like, that's not unique or interesting in any way. If I say Ursa, it might not be as popular as some of the Red cameras, but you know what that is. It has staying power. And that's what I would recommend first and foremost. Change the design, give it a cool, much better name, and take it from there. Okay? Let's give this, if we look at the Ursa Mini Pro, and they're taking that to become a 12K camera, I don't think the successor to the Pocket Cinema camera needs to go to 12K, maybe 8K, but like 6K, around that range I think is good. Improve the frame rates, but think about the mount. Or should they go RF? Should they go Sony E mount? I don't actually know what would be the best choice. Maybe L mount is new with like Sigma and Panasonic and Leica working with the L mount. But something that's mirrorless, and I think if the Pocket Cinema camera, the next one, is going to be that true hybrid from Blackmagic, it should have a full frame sensor. Right now, they have a Super 35 sensor with the 6K version. If they made a version that has a full frame sensor and kind of distinguish a little bit between the Ursa Mini Pro 12K being a film, broadcast, video, like you look at this thing, this is going to shoot video. It's going to make beautiful film. It's a true cinema camera. Have the Pocket Cinema camera, that line, whatever that becomes, be more of your photography line, hybrid video, all in one, small form factor, and figure out a way to put NDs in there and change the mount, I think, and change the battery too, because that's like, fix all the shortcomings on the Pocket Cinema camera. If you've shot with them, you know what they are. And at this point, it's kind of, I think Blackmagic could find a really strong spot in the market with like that hybrid, like making parity with like equal with Canon, Sony, Panasonic, and Blackmagic can be right there. A true photography camera that does all the video features that already, like Blackmagic is known, like if you haven't shot with these cameras, I actually really like how they look, just like the log profile, they call it film, but it's kind of their log look out of the camera. Incredible dynamic range. I really like the color. I think it's easy to grade. These things shoot ProRes in body, which is an incredible advantage, especially when you're used to, if you come from like MP4s and H.264 and H.265, and if you're editing in Premiere and it's chugging and it's slow and you're gonna make proxies and you're gonna do all this stuff, the moment you just shoot and edit ProRes, it's life-changing when it comes to workflow. It's fantastic. And keeping that in a camera and then adding some of the photo features and making the sensor size a little bit bigger, having in-body image stabilization, and doing some of that stuff that has become kind of standard in the market, but having something from Blackmagic that they're known for that cinema style and aesthetic. Because a lot of times people can't tell. They look at it and they go, oh, is that like, is that, if they're looking at the footage, if they look at the camera, they obviously know it's not a red. But if they're looking at the footage, they go, oh, that's beautiful. Is that like a red? Is that an Alexa? Like what shot that? And you're like, oh, it's the Ursa Mini Pro. And they're like, what is that? It's like, yes, keep pushing. And then the other thing I have to just give Blackmagic, just applaud them for, is the other camera products they have. So like cameras are like a newer addition to Blackmagic. Blackmagic is much more of like an AV style company with a lot of switchboards and that kind of stuff. But if you don't know the full catalog from Blackmagic, it's actually really cool. They have some really neat stuff. They're actual live switchers. So they have these mini like switchers that are really cheap, really affordable, and you can do live switching right to your computer. I'm not doing that right now. I don't actually have one of these, but they look really cool. And it's something that like I would love to have just for that flexibility now that a lot of jobs are turning into live video jobs. Being able to do a live switch to YouTube, to Facebook with multiple cameras with like quality inputs, right? Like these are HDMI, can take multiple cameras, send it out there. Like it's really cool. They've also got the external recorders, like the video assists. And I think those have been updated since I had one. But I've gone to like Atomos, and like I actually don't end up using external recorders and monitors all that often, but it's nice if you need them and that's part of your rig. But they used to have, and maybe they still do, it was like a rudimentary switchboard, but it like also turned the cameras like into like a webcam for your laptop, and that's how that switchboard works. They've kind of updated that. I think it's under streaming and encoding. The web presenter, this is it. So this is a little bit older, probably outdated now by the switcher, but Blackmagic makes really cool stuff, and it's the stuff that's like maybe not immediately like, oh, like I want that, but you're like, oh, I could actually use something like that. That would be really helpful for this project I have coming up. So anytime you're given a job or a task that's kind of in like the AV world, where it's like switching or live production or anything like that, check out the Blackmagic stuff, because they end up having really good products that are really affordable, that are actually kind of like hard to find or not a lot of people are making. So really interesting, really kind of innovative stuff. And I'm really excited for whatever the Pocket Cinema camera is, like the next one. I think what they have currently is cool and is good. I mean, even the, what was here? It was just it wasn't the Pocket Cinema camera. It was just the Cinema camera. I think it was their first one, right? And it's like they've gotten better and better and better at making cameras. And if the Ursa Mini Pro 12K is any indication of where they're heading, I'm really excited of where the Pocket Cinema camera is going to go.